Hello, and welcome back to my mini-series covering the war on deconstruction. This is episode number 2. Are you playing the intro yet? Why haven't you just pressed the button? I set it up. All you have to do is press the button. No, now we have to redo it. If you could just press the button as soon as I say episode 2, that would be fantastic. You've got it? Okay. Let's try this again. You're sure? Put your finger above the button so I know you're going to press it. Okay. Hello. We are almost at 500 subscribers, people. What else is there to say besides wow and thank you? Thank you all so much for joining me here, for subscribing to my channel, and for interacting with me in the comments. It's almost been a year since I posted my first evangelical video, and I'm super proud of how far we've come in that time. I think a lot of people get online with a certain expectation of what success looks like, and I'm no exception to that. When I originally got on YouTube, I wasn't sure what my channel was going to look like or what content I was going to make. I slowly, over the course of this last year, have been finding my voice, and while I think I have found a little niche content corner, I feel like I'm still finding my voice. Evangelical content has really been the majority of what I've created thus far, and I'll definitely continue making those. But I'm excited to keep branching out and making other content as well. I've hinted at some other videos that are in the works right now, including on my Patreon to my patrons exclusively, and while some of those videos are not evangelical, I'm excited to release them. Yes, they're taking longer than I expected, but that sort of is my style, I think. But I hope in the end, it'll be worth the wait. So, again, thank you to all of you who have joined this channel in the last year, and here's to more videos, more laughs, and seeing where the next year takes us. So I need to put into the beginning of this video that I misspoke in my last video. I called John Cooper a pastor and said that I would bet money on the fact that because he's a pastor, he has most likely used emotionally manipulative techniques to convince people to come to Jesus and convert to Christianity. And it dawned on me suddenly at some point over the last week or so that I was wrong. I don't know how I missed it the first time, but John is not a pastor. So, the context in which he uses emotional manipulation is not what I made it out to be. However, I stand by my criticism and would like to ratify my bet that he has used this tactic on stage still. But instead of being a pastor on a Sunday morning, it probably just happened during like a totally radical Skillet concert. The point is, he has influence like a pastor, perhaps even more than most pastors, and he's still an asshole. Today's thing that we're reacting to, of course, goes in line with the deconstruction theme. But today it's a video that was sent to me on Instagram by one of my followers, and I'm gonna keep them anonymous because they actually used to go to this church and were preached to by this pastor. And yes, this time, he actually is a pastor. So I want to say thank you so much to that follower for sending me this helpful stuff, because as much as it sucks to see this content online and to like have people talking some bullshit like this, the silver lining is we get to break it down and make fun of it. So let's watch it. The video in question was put out by a man named Daniel Fusco, who looks like a very cool pastor of a very cool church. My guess, just by looking quickly at him and his profile and some of the stuff he's posted, is that this is probably one of those churches that hides under the guise of being non-denominational, but is actually one of the worst kind of fundamentalist churches that you'll ever find. They sort of hit this halfway point of not having the labels of yesterday's evangelical church, while still having all of the viewpoints, opinions, and horrible, horrible ways that they treat people. This typically means they view the Bible legalistically. They typically believe the earth is only about 6,000 years old. They take all of the stories in the Bible, not just as metaphor and parables, but also literally. And everyone has to be saved and everyone has to be a Christian in order to get into heaven. Oh, by the way, they also probably don't like gay people, so that kind of Christian. I can already hear somebody saying like, no, it's not that they don't like gay people, it's that we don't like their sin. And I can't even deal with that right now. So no. So let's see what Daniel has to say about deconstruction. And we're taking bets in the comments. Do you think you're going to like what he has to say? Or is it more likely that because I'm covering it in this video, it's gonna be a load of horse shit? I'll leave it up to you.
Hey everybody, Daniel Fusco here, and welcome to today's 2-minute message.
Okay, off the bat, he says, welcome to today's 2-minute message. And I see 2 minutes and 44 seconds down here. This is maybe a personal little pet peeve here, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but what is it with pastors and saying, we're just going to talk for a couple minutes here, and then you end up sitting there for a couple fucking hours? Like, you don't have to say it's going to be a couple minutes. Like, the only thing that I can think is that they're trying to use some kind of psychological trick to be like, this is only 2 minutes of your life, or when I say a couple minutes, it's gonna make you feel like it's not gonna take that long, so you're gonna invest and pay attention, and then I have you in a social contract where you have to listen to me until I'm done because I have power over you, and I'm your pastor, and I make the rules. But God, I remember so many times being in church and the pastor being like, we're gonna talk for just a couple minutes this evening. And I remember always rolling my eyes, even when I was into it, even when I was like, yeah, let's like feed my spirit with this holy message that I'm receiving from this very unholy person. I was just like, God, we all know it's not 2 minutes. So stop saying a couple of minutes when you really mean longer than that. And I know, 45 seconds or 44 seconds, technically, is not that much more than 2 minutes, but it is a pastor trope and it pisses me off, and I've already watched this video like 40 times, so I already am mad. And that's just what it's gonna be, and that's what I've got to say about that. So, whatever. Let's move on. Actually, I know I said let's move on, but I want to say one more thing. I don't know if like when I know a person is like super Christian, my walls go up, or if I have just been around so many people like this that I am very emotionally attuned to these kind of people, or maybe it's a combination of those two things, or maybe it's something else. I really don't know, but like in the first 5 seconds, I get such a horrible feeling from watching him. And I think this is kind of hard to talk about because we can't always put our finger on like, this is why I don't feel good while watching this guy say hello to me in his intro. And all he's doing is saying hello and introducing himself and like saying what they're going to be talking about. And already I feel a horrible feeling inside of my gut. I don't like him, and I think it's worthwhile to question that. So my first reaction, from the perspective that maybe I'm more emotionally attuned, like let's go with that for a second, is that I see this kind of happy reaching out as very fake. My nervous system, the way that I read people, what I see is, hello, I'm faking happiness to convince you of something and to make you feel comfortable with me, even though you shouldn't be comfortable with me because I'm a very toxic person. That's more or less what I see. Now, I'm totally willing to be wrong about that. I'm totally willing for it to just be, a defense mechanism that I put up because I have been around so many toxic Christians. But I want to put this out there because, again, I think it's hard to talk about because you don't always have like exactly why that person feels off to you. And it can feel like an attack against the person. And maybe the person deserves it, but also maybe the person doesn't. So I don't think a lot of people want to talk about that because you're never sure. But Daniel Fusco ego aside, I get this feeling about a lot of pastors, and truth be told, I personally think that there's something more than just a defense mechanism. And I think the defense mechanism is playing into that. So I don't know. I guess I'm throwing that out there to be like, if you also experience this, you are justified in experiencing it. It doesn't mean that you get to just like roll with that and be a jerk to people, but I do want to like validate that experience and let you know, no, you're not crazy. Some of these people actually do really, really suck. And some of these people are actually super fake. Not knowing enough about Daniel, I couldn't tell you exactly. I'd be more interested in hearing from people who have interacted with him personally or one-on-one or who go to his church. I just want to put some context out there for people who experience this on a semi-regular basis. So let's watch the video.
You know, it's amazing that we live in a day and age now where our people are deconstructing everything. It's kind of the deconstruction is the buzzword of the day, where they want to deconstruct the way our world is working. And of course, this has kind of made its way into the church. And we have these steady stream of people who are deconstructing their faith. Now, what's really amazing is, you know, the word deconstruction is like the trendy word for, hey, I'm walking away from my faith in Jesus.
All right, we're going to pause there. Already we have a major misunderstanding and a major problem with the way that Daniel is presenting deconstruction, which is almost exactly the same as John Cooper did in our last video. Deconstruction does not mean automatically that people are walking away from their faith. I went into the history and definition of deconstructionism in episode 1, so you can check more of that out there. But the people that I keep finding speaking out against deconstruction are ironically the ones who understand it the absolute least. Like he's just saying people are using deconstruction as a buzzword to say I'm leaving my faith. And while that's probably not true for everybody, something hit me while watching this video. I don't know how I didn't think of this earlier, like with John Cooper's post, but it makes a lot of sense now that I'm thinking about it, and I want to run it by you all. The pastors and Christians who keep saying deconstruction is the new hip term that means stepping away from your faith are saying that because that's what they see. So stick with me here. It's true that the term deconstruction has become more popular recently, and maybe even more of a buzzword. And it's likely also true that many ex-Christians experienced some kind of deconstruction before stepping away from their faith. But what do you say to a pastor who acts like he cares deeply about you while really only caring about the part he plays in your salvation? A pastor who's been like a mentor to you. A pastor who's been so cool and drinks beer and maybe even tells the gay couple they're welcome to attend without really ever publicly announcing that homophobia is not okay, because that would reflect poorly on the larger church assembly you're involved with, or it would isolate a certain portion of your congregation, so you don't do that. What do you say to that pastor when they ask you how things are going, and you feel awkward because you don't want to lie, but you also don't want to tell the whole truth about how you're struggling with your faith because that's so embarrassing, and in some sects of Christianity, it's also a sin. And then he'll want to get involved, and you just know that's not going to be helpful because you sense on some level they don't truly care about helping you reach your own conclusion, but that he'll use all of your personal struggles against you, like he maybe has in the past, while trying to lure you back to Christianity. No, you decide you can't tell the whole truth, but you know you need space to figure this out on your own, or with a neutral third party. But you still feel like you can't lie. He is your pastor after all, and you're still maybe a Christian. So you say the thing that you've been hearing kind of circulating in circles and what you've heard other people use. Oh, I'm all right. I'm just deconstructing some stuff right now. Perfect. This makes you seem like you're actively worrying about your faith while lacking any specificity, so the pastor can't pry further in that moment. It's enough to convince the pastor you're just feeling a little off right now, but vague enough to get you out of any awkward social agreement when the pastor inevitably pushes for more. Oh, I see. Well, would you like to grab a beer and talk about this sometime this week? Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. This week isn't so good for me, but I can let you know when I'm available again. Okay, well, yeah, just let me know. You know, I've been through some tough times before too, so I know how it can be. And I want to let you know, I'm here for you. Reach out anytime. Okay, great, yeah. Thanks, Pastor Daniel. I really appreciate that. I'm smiling and nodding, shaking his hand, but I know I'm not going to follow through with this. Thank God he didn't press for more right now. I'm not sure what I'm going through right now, but I just know talking to this fake happy human who's motivated by religious zeal is not what I need when asking questions about this religion. Chris, you can let go of my hand now. Huh? Oh, right. So I'll see you later. Basically, these pastors keep thinking deconstruction just means people are leaving their faith because they create such a toxic environment of yes men and people pleasers around them that nobody feels that they can actually be honest with them, or at least fully honest. So I imagine people who are going through some religious questioning just fall back to deconstruction as a term to get them out of having to explain more to the pastor, who's just gonna make them feel worse when they talk. I would absolutely do that. I feel like I have done something like that before. When I was going through the process of leaving Christianity, which is not usually a very fast process for people start asking questions, or you just have Christian people around you who you are used to having Christian conversations with, and Christianity is the thing that their entire world revolves around, so they just talk about that anyway. And then you start beating around the bush, not talking about the things in the same way anymore. You're more just like listening, leaning back. People start to wonder. So you come up with these things that let them know, yes, I'm going through something, but I'd like to keep you at a distance. Because that's the most likely scenario in which they're gonna like leave you alone. You see, Daniel, people don't really like it when you have an agenda to save their souls, unfortunately. Or maybe I would say fortunately. You would say unfortunately, probably. Humans in general can sense when someone's being nice to get something out of that interaction. We can tell that you're not actually listening to us when we're speaking vulnerably with people like you. We can actively see you taking our words, disregarding their true meaning, and formulating calculated attacks to get me back into Christianity. Personally, I can almost hear the cogs turning in your brain to find the perfect Bible verse, praying to the Holy Spirit to guide you to say the right thing, and putting on your performance of superficial cheeriness and trustworthiness through a thick cloud of worry that I'll just be another lost soul who you failed to save in time, and one less piggy bank for you to drain. So now that we have at least one understanding of why Daniel and others might keep misconstruing the idea of deconstruction, let's hear what else he has to say.
And I've talked to a number of people recently who are really struggling in their faith. And here's one of the things that I want to encourage you is that one is that doubt is actually part of the journey of trusting in Jesus. See, I realize that for all of us, we have doubts about things. God is infinite and we are not. God's word can be challenging and we don't always know what to do with it. And so sometimes we're like, hey, I don't know what to do with this. Now, the first thing is you have to remember is that God is not scared of your questions, right? God is not scared of your questions. So you have to bring them to the Lord. Now, you might not like God's answer to your questions, but God's not scared of him. And I believe that our doubts are an invitation from Jesus to draw us closer.
All right, let's pause on that thought. Doubt is a part of your journey with God. This pisses me off on a lot of levels. First of all, doubt is a valid response to have when things don't make sense, period. Daniel is also kind of saying this, so I'm not knocking that so much. What I am knocking is suggesting that doubt is an invitation from Jesus to go deeper with him. Not everything is a Christian tool of salvation, motherfucker. Stop trying to turn every fucking thing into a hidden message from God. God should just come out and say some shit. And just be real for once in his fucking miserable life. I'm pretty sure everyone's done trying to interpret the will of God through ass-backwards parables and meaningless interpretations from average middle-class heterosexual men. Also, making doubt a message from God not only tries to subtly shame people for going a different direction with their doubt, by telling them they're not listening to the words of God, it also makes your God look really dumb. And I mean, really dumb. What? You have this all-powerful God who purposefully plants doubt, specifically to get them closer in relationship with him. But most of them end up leaving the religion entirely because of that doubt. So now God's just like,
Damn. I really thought that doubt trick would work. Oh well, guess they're all going to hell.
Like, what a fucking idiot. Third, telling us that your all-powerful God is not afraid of us asking questions, but that we might not like the answers is like me asking, hey, what's the weather like this weekend? Just wondering about when to mow my lawn. And you saying back to me, oh, well, grass usually grows when it rains and there's some sunlight, but you might not like how much it grows. Like, That doesn't help me answer any of my questions, or help me with figuring out when to mow my lawn. Of fucking course God's not afraid of questions. That would be absolutely fucking ridiculous if he was afraid of questions. Don't say it like you're telling us something that should make us feel better. That's a given. Nobody was asking if God was fucking scared of questions, my guy. We want the actual answers. So don't try to placate us with some half-truth that he's not afraid and that we just might not like the answers. Which brings me to the fourth thing, which is, how do we get an answer from God that we actually know is from God and is true? The answer is, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, no matter what kind of relationship you think you have with your God, you don't. Even if you believe in God and you believe in God talking to you, you don't really know if it's God talking or just your imagination, or even something else. You have no fucking clue, and you're lying if you say that you do. Either lying to yourself or to other people. You have chosen to believe that, which doesn't make it true, even if you feel that it's true. And you can say how believing in it makes it true for you, and you can point out how you feel better because you believe that, or whatever other else shit you want to say, you can say it. But you can't truly know. And that's when faith comes in. And when faith comes in, there is now room for doubt to creep in. And when doubt creeps in, that's where we split off. It's fairly easy for doubt to take over where faith once was, especially when you've been living by faith for so long and that becomes tiring when you want to grow, because faith isn't enough anymore. And you don't get to rely on half-assed messages saying God is talking to you through your doubt when you can't even fucking prove that he's real, or that he can talk, or that he talks to us, or that you can hear it. So saying that God is talking through doubt and that it's an invitation from Jesus to go deeper and to get closer with him is a complete fucking cop-out with so many problems. And frankly, it's just a horrible position to have.
But here's the thing. When we start doubting, we have to really be honest about why we're doubting. I find a lot of times people are deconstructing because they actually don't want Jesus to be the Lord of their life. There's lifestyle choices and things that they want to do. Things that like, man, I've been repressing this for so long. I don't want to repress it anymore. And they use deconstruction as the way out to really live the way they want to live. And here's what I want to tell you. Jesus invites us to be holy as he is holy. And when the Spirit of God is in you, then the Spirit of God is working us to experience the holiness that's been shared with us in Jesus. And we want to make sure that we're not just using deconstruction as a cop-out to not grow in the ways that God wants to grow.
Just shut up. Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. I've listened to this video so many times and somehow it gets worse every time because he has such a smug and fake cheery way that he's going about it. I know I talked about this at the beginning saying that like, I can't actually know, but Jesus Christ, I can't shake the feeling. It's just so horrible coming off of the video. Okay. Let's talk about this piece here. Here's this lifestyle piece. You know, here's another little secret message that he's dropping that lets me know that he is a fundamentalist and that he is the kind of Christian and runs the kind of church where gay people might be allowed to like sit in, more likely not because it's probably fucking uncomfortable for them to be there, but they might be allowed to sit in at the very least without anyone actually acknowledging the fact that they're gay, especially from the leadership, or speaking out against homophobia from the pulpit to set the tone for the rest of the congregation. So it's either this don't ask, don't tell policy, or this complete, like, we listen to the Bible, we don't condone living a life in sin, is what they would say. And here he is talking about people leaving their faith because they've repressed a part of themselves for a long time because of Christianity, and they don't want to repress that anymore. And he says lifestyle choices. Usually when pastors use the lifestyle example, they'll throw things in there that sort of sound like they could be bad, like drinking and drugs and hanging out with like bad people. It's always very vague so that you can like put yourself into it, you know. But who are some of the most repressed people within Christianity? LGBTQ2IA+ people. Who often leaves Christianity because of lifestyle choices? LGBTQ2IA+ people. So the thin veneer of like, people are leaving because they're deconstructing their faith and want to do things that aren't godly and they're so selfish for doing that is just like a straight up like horrible, toxic, manipulative bullshit message from this dude. I'm really struggling right now. I don't know what it is. Man.
And then finally, here's the thing. If you're doubting, why don't you treat your doubts with the same measure that you've treated your faith? Like, when was the last time you doubted your doubts? When was the last time you poked holes in your doubts from an intellectual level, the way you're doing your faith right now? Because what I found is that oftentimes when people want to deconstruct, they don't ever doubt their doubts. They don't ever question their assumptions the way that they were questioning their previous assumptions. And it's an uneven scales, which guess what? That's an abomination to the Lord.
Honestly, fuck your God. And if I end my life with my tombstone that says an abomination to the Christian God, I would be very happy with that. So, good. Number 2, I love that you can see how good of an argument he thinks this is. I mean, look at his face. He crosses his arms and everything, and he's like, when was the last time you doubted your doubts? I don't know if you thought about this like super deep question, but here, let me lay it on you real quick. When was the last time you doubted your doubts? I knew you didn't think about that one. Come to Sunday service, I've got more where that comes from. Like, this is 100% coming from a man who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. When was the last time you doubted your doubts is a bad faith argument, and I'll tell you why. Have you ever said to someone, you can't prove God exists, as a way of saying like, it's unreasonable to believe in God? And then without responding to that accusation, they respond with, well, you can't prove that he doesn't exist, as if that is an actual rebuttal to the thing that you're saying. And it basically ends there because like, where do you go in a conversation like that? This is called deflecting, and specifically, it is the tu quoque fallacy. The tu quoque fallacy deflects criticism away from oneself by accusing the other person of the same problem or something comparable. It's an attempt to divert blame. This fallacy usually occurs when the arguer uses apparent hypocrisy to neutralize criticism and distract from the issue at hand. You see, it's reasonable to not have proof of something and decide to not believe in that thing. So it's a reasonable statement to say, you can't prove that God exists, and then followed up with like, why would you believe in something that you can't prove is real? It's completely irrational to believe in something when there is no evidence of its existence. So when someone points out that you can't prove that there is a God, it's up to the person who believes in the God to bring that proof forward. They have the burden of proof because they are the one making a claim, making an assertion. I believe God is real, okay? The burden of proof is on you to prove to someone else who can't experience what you're experiencing and who doesn't have your faith that God is real. But when they don't answer that question or address that criticism and they just say, well, you can't prove that God doesn't exist, they're giving away the fact that they don't know what they're talking about, that they haven't thought enough about what they're talking about, or that they don't care about the truth because they just like to pick and choose their own. So when Daniel says, have you doubted your doubts? He's making a smart-sounding but extremely ill-informed argument. If you're truly deconstructing, doubting your doubts is the fucking name of the game, Daniel. Usually when people are brave enough to question something as big and powerful as Christianity, they're also brave enough to question if they're making a huge mistake in questioning that really huge, powerful thing. Daniel, you don't think that every single Christian at some point who's deconstructing or even eventually stepping away from their faith isn't terrified at some point that they're wrong? I'm starting to get the impression that you've never actually talked to anyone who is really deconstructing. And let me be clear, I think you've talked at people who are deconstructing. I think you've sat in a room with someone who had serious questions and concerns, and they shared those with you, and you sat there and told them why they were wrong in so many words. But I don't think you've ever actually had a real conversation, a true dialogue with someone about their deconstruction. I think it's just like I said earlier. People don't trust you and people like you when they're truly going through the shit. They don't want to talk to you because you don't listen. You use logical fallacies and emotional manipulation to win. You want to win the conversation. You want to win people over instead of just supporting them with their process no matter where it takes them. I'm not a betting man, as we know, but based on the fact that you would put these tactics into your video and just post it online for anybody to see, I've got to be willing to bet that you use the same or worse tactics when you're in private with people. I can't tell you how many times during my deconstruction, before I even knew I was deconstructing, that I was so afraid of being wrong, that I was heartbroken because I felt like I was turning my back on this God that loved me. And not only that, but I was told that God loves me more than anybody could ever love me. So I thought I was turning my back on my creator, on the being that loved me the most in the universe. You don't think I doubted that? You don't think people are doubting that when they're going through this process, Daniel? Like, you're an absolute fucking fool if you don't think that people are doubting their doubts naturally, already, like while it's happening. And then you have religious trauma. Even when people get out of the Christianity and get out of the toxic environments, you still have religious trauma sometimes to work through. And that causes you to doubt even when you're no longer really even deconstructing. In the early days of my non-belief, of my stepping away from Christianity, I would have panic attacks about still going to hell, about the rapture happening, about being wrong about it all. So you don't get to just throw out like, excuse me, have you doubted your doubts, sir? I think I got you there. I think I got you in a little quandary. Your scales are uneven too, Daniel. You have way more faith than you have critical thinking skills. So I guess that means you're an abomination to the Lord. Oh, dang, dude. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. I know they said just have faith, but I think you took it a little too far there, my guy. I don't think God's too happy with you when I really stop and think about it. But I'm sure you probably knew that since you can talk to him and he talks to you and you hear him and you know that it's God and not maybe even the devil convincing you that it's God or your imagination.
So listen, I don't want anyone to deconstruct their faith. I want us to realize that there are times of doubt, but it's actually an invitation into a greater faith, a deeper understanding of who the Lord is.
Of course he doesn't want people to deconstruct. That's not really that fucking surprising. Because like I said in the last video, it works. And part of what bothers me about like the way that they talk about deconstruction is they say it as if it's the only thing that people are taking on that's taking them away from Christianity, and that's just not true. You don't have to only practice deconstruction. Just like with life, you do need a balance of things, and it's helpful to have cycles. So while deconstruction can be a cycle of breaking things down in your life, it's helpful to then return to a cycle of building back up. And while deconstruction can also lead to people leaving their faith, wanting to build up a better life for yourself, wanting to have healthier habits and things that you enjoy in your life and people that you enjoy and lifestyle choices that pertain to you and values that you actually align with, those can all also take you away from Christianity because Christianity does not support these healthy habits and healthy lifestyles. After going through my own several-year period of deconstructing, I realized it was time to rebuild. Rebuild my personality in a way that didn't revolve around religion. Rebuild my interests in a way that took place outside of church and Christian friends. And rebuild my life in a way that truly reflected who I was, who I want to be, and what I truly wanted to do. It takes time, but it works. And that's why all of these pastors and other people speaking out against deconstruction are afraid and talking about it. But for anybody interested in deconstructing, anybody going through it right now, you experience, metaphorically speaking, the winter of death, decay, inner journeys, hard questions, and you come out on the other side ready for new growth, new life, and new landscapes. The last part is him asking for people to share the video and to put their thoughts about deconstruction in the comments so that we can all learn from each other, is what he says. Daniel, I don't think you actually believe you can learn from any of us. I think you definitely think we have a thing or two to learn from you, but God forbid you actually took the time to actually listen to somebody instead of trying to delegitimize people's processes of deconstruction. Shame on you, Daniel. Shame on you. Thanks so much for tuning in and catching this second episode of The War on Deconstruction. If you enjoyed this video, please press like and subscribe and share it with your friends and your favorite pastor from the good old days. And let's see what they say. You can find all my social medias in the description box, as well as the link to my Patreon, where you can support me in creating more content like this and other content. Thank you to all of my current patrons for your support. And again, to everyone who made it possible getting this far, almost 500 subscribers. I have a good feeling about this, and I'm looking forward to the future. And I hope to see more of each other in the coming days.